Welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be here, ready to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, if you've been paying attention, even just casually over the last few years, it feels like something big is changing around UAPs, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. The whole conversation has shifted. We're past the point of asking if they're real.
Yeah.
Now everyone's asking, okay, what are they?
Exactly. You've got official acknowledgments, these congressional hearings, whistleblowers coming forward. I mean, it feels like there's this real momentum building towards what people are calling disclosure.
It definitely feels that way. But, today we really need to cut through some of that noise. Because our mission here is to try and understand this whole moment, this official acknowledgement phase, through a very different lens, a skeptical one, maybe even a, frankly, kind of terrifying one.
And that lens belongs to Dr. Jacques Vallée.
The one person who's dedicated, 60 years, 6 decades to this subject, and who flatly says this current stuff, it isn't disclosure, not at all.
And we need to be clear, Vallée isn't some fringe figure shouting from the sidelines. I mean, this is a respected computer scientist, venture capitalist, was an astronomer. His work is foundational for serious UAP studies.
Right. He was even the model for the French scientist in Close Encounters. Spielberg looked at his work.
Which brings us to this huge paradox, doesn't it? The guy who has spent decades meticulously confirming the physical reality of UAPs, the objects, the experiences, he completely rejects the current narrative.
Completely. He looks at Congress, the military focus, and he calls it, and this is his phrase, a new, more sophisticated phase of deception.
Wow. Okay. So that's our task for this deep dive then. We need to unpack the thesis he's built over 60 years that lets him make such a radical claim.
We have to understand why he throws out the simple idea of, physical aliens in nuts and bolts ships.
And what this darker, maybe more complex control system he talks about, what that actually is. Because without getting that foundation, his critique of what's happening now, it just won't make sense.
Exactly. We have to start there.
Okay, so Vallée. He occupies this really interesting space, doesn't he? Like a scientific heretic.
Totally. He insists the UAPs are physically real. The data radar hits, ground traces, the trauma people report, he says that's valid. But, and this is the huge but, he rigorously rejects the standard extraterrestrial hypothesis, the ETH.
Meaning he doesn't think these are physical ships flown by biological aliens from another planet.
No. And his reason is simple. The data just doesn't fit that model. Not if you assume they're rational interstellar visitors trying to be discreet.
Okay, so let's break that down. Because his rejection isn't just a feeling, right? It's based on analyzing the data itself. He points to, 5 key absurdities?
That's right. 5 core ways the data contradicts the simple ETH. And the first one is basically about logistics.
The sheer number of encounters.
Exactly. The statistical absurdity. If you actually dig into the archives, the databases Vallée and others have built up, the number of close encounters reported globally, it's just immense. Far too many, he says, for any kind of rational physical survey of Earth.
Right. I mean, if you're an advanced civilization that can cross interstellar space, wouldn't stealth be your top priority? You'd use probes, maybe? Quiet surveys?
You wouldn't be engaging in thousands, maybe millions, of high-visibility encounters. Dogfights with jets, buzzing cars, landing in populated areas.
Yeah.
It's inefficient. It's showy.
Ostentatious, as he puts it.
Yeah. So why be so obvious? If the goal is just mapping or resource assessment, it makes no sense. Which leads Vallée to suggest, well, maybe the goal isn't observing Earth. Maybe it's observing us, observing our reaction to them.
Ah, okay. That's a totally different objective. Which leads straight into the second point, the biological absurdity, the way these beings are described.
Overwhelmingly humanoid, right? 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. Often just variations on our own form, like the typical grays.
And Vallée says, biologically, that's just incredibly unlikely.
He really leans on evolutionary biologists here, like George Gaylord Simpson. The odds of life evolving on 2 totally separate planets and ending up with the same basic body plan, especially the humanoid one.
Yeah.
Astronomically low, near zero, basically.
There's no biological law that says intelligence has to come in a package that looks like us.
None at all. And think about the descriptions, often frail bodies, large heads, thin limbs. Are those really adapted for the rigors of space travel? High G-forces? Doesn't seem likely.
So why that form, if they're so advanced?
Well, Vallée's answer ties back to the first point. If the goal is psychological impact, you choose a form that resonates with us. Familiar enough to recognize as life, but alien enough to shock, to inspire awe or fear. The body itself is part of the
performance. Okay. That sets up the third absurdity, which gets, pretty disturbing. The behavioral absurdity, looking at abduction reports.
Yeah, the actions reported during these encounters, the supposed medical exams, the genetic sampling, the messages they give.
It's often described as bizarre, illogical,
Yep.
deeply traumatic.
Exactly. Theatrical, illogical, and psychologically traumatic is how Vallée puts it. If these were truly advanced scientists conducting genetic research, why do it in such a crude, almost ritualistic way? Why the fear? Why the pain? Why the often sexualized nature of it? It contradicts the idea of sterile, efficient science.
It seems almost counterproductive. If you want good genetic samples, you don't terrify your subject.
Right. Unless the trauma isn't a side effect.
Yeah.
Unless the psychological shock is actually the point.
So the goal isn't genetic data, it's imprinting something, changing the person's reality.
That's Vallée's interpretation. The procedures might be symbolic, staged, designed to fundamentally alter the witness's belief system, their perception of reality. The experience is the message, not necessarily the literal details of the exam.
Okay, heavy stuff. Moving to the fourth point, historical persistence. This isn't just a modern thing, post-Roswell, post-nukes.
Not even close. This is crucial for Vallée. He shows how this exact same type of phenomenon stretches back through all of recorded history. The form changes, the explanation changes, but the core encounter structure, it's consistent.
Fiery shields over ancient Rome.
Celestial chariots in medieval Japan. The big airship waves in the 1890s across America and Europe. It's the same pattern. Sudden, technologically baffling intrusions that disrupt the local reality.
And the technology seems to update itself, right, to match whatever the current human understanding is.
Precisely. Before flight, there were ships sailing the air. After rockets, there's sleek spacecraft. If they were just physical visitors from Planet X, their ships should look roughly the same across centuries. But they don't. They adapt.
Which strongly suggests they aren't just external travelers, they're interacting with our culture, using our symbols.
It points towards something adaptive, something that understands human consciousness. Which brings us to the fifth and final absurdity, the really challenging one, physical transgression.
This is where the physics just goes out the window.
Completely. We're talking about the things that make military pilots just shake their heads. Impossible acceleration, stopping on a dime, right-angle turns at Mach 5, disappearing instantly.
And the stranger stuff, too, like reports of objects being bigger on the inside than the outside.
Or manipulating time.
Exactly. Vallée calls it an apparent ability to manipulate space and time. These things don't behave like objects moving through space according to Newton or even Einstein necessarily. They seem to be manipulating the fabric of space-time itself.
So if we're seeing them as just physical craft, like advanced jets, we're missing the point entirely.
We're applying the wrong model. If something can vanish here and reappear there instantly, it's not using propulsion as we know it. It suggests, as Vallée says, radically different and richer alternatives to just interstellar travel.
And this high strangeness, the weirdness, that's not noise in the data, that's the signal.
That's the core feature. It's designed to be reality-bending, to shatter our neat little models. Okay, so if it's real, it's been here forever, it's deceptive, adaptive, and breaks physics. What is it? How do we even start to categorize this? This takes us to his really groundbreaking book from way back in '69, right? Passport to Magonia.
Yes, Magonia was revolutionary. It was the first major attempt to build a framework outside of the ETH by connecting modern UAP reports directly to historical folklore. Elves, fairies, goblins.
He argued they were basically the same phenomenon, just wearing different cultural clothes, a cultural chameleon.
That's the term. It used the mythology, the symbols available in a given culture, to mask its operations.
And the parallels he drew were pretty stunning. Talk about the entity comparisons.
Well, he showed how the reported actions of, say, the elves, sylphs, and Lutins of the Middle Ages are structurally identical to what modern aliens are reported doing.
Like abduction.
Exactly. Both medieval fairies and modern aliens are said to abduct specific people, sometimes targeting families or bloodlines. Both are associated with missing time. The victim experiences minutes, but hours or days have passed in the outside world. It's the same narrative structure.
And the whole focus on reproduction, the hybrid babies, the genetic harvesting, that echoes old folklore too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Stories of changelings, infants stolen by fairies, demonic seduction. It's the same underlying anxiety about interference with human lineage and birth. The theme persists. The details just get updated.
Even down to physical traces.
Yep, those fairy rings or magic circles, patches of scorched or unusually growing grass, structurally identical to the landing traces reported for modern UAPs. Same physical signature, different explanation magic than technology now.
So this force, whatever it is, it seems to know how to plug right into our deepest psychology, our myths.
It uses the symbols we provide. Angels and demons in a religious age, technologically advanced ETs in a scientific one. It adapts its appearance to be massively impactful within the current belief system. Hashtag IC. The control system and developmental driver.
Okay, so this historical continuity, this adaptive intelligence, this leads Vallée to his main hypothesis, right? Not ETH, but IUH.
Interdimensional or ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, IUH. He argues the source isn't another planet in our dimension, but rather, well, somewhere else. Coexisting parallel dimensions, maybe. Metaphysical realms. It's speculative, of course, but...
So it would explain the physics-bending stuff?
It could, if they aren't crossing light years, but instead just opening windows or doorways between realities.
Yeah.
That could account for the instant appearances, the space-time manipulation. They aren't traveling here, they're manifesting here.
Well, okay, paradigm shift. So if they're interdimensional, what's their purpose? If not colonization or open contact, Vallée talks about manipulating consciousness.
That seems to be his central idea. The control system, he calls it. It acts as a psychological and societal tool, its main job, to constantly challenge the idea of a fixed, objective reality.
How?
By injecting absurdity, by staging these high strangeness events that don't fit neatly into any box. Not science, not religion, not folklore, not ETH. It forces us, collectively, to question our basic assumptions about the world. It's like a constant, low-level ontological shock treatment.
Ontological shock, challenging our very sense of what's real, but is this benevolent, malevolent, just neutral? He offers a twist on that, right? The developmental driver idea.
Yeah, that's the crucial nuance. He suggests maybe this control system isn't necessarily hostile. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe this force is intentionally introduced to push us forward, to accelerate or expand human evolution.
To transfigure us.
That's the word he uses. The idea is that the deception, the confusion, the trickster element, it's actually a teaching mechanism. It forces humanity to let go of rigid, outdated beliefs, whether that's religious dogma or overly simplistic scientific materialism.
It forces us to grow mentally to encompass a more complex reality.
Exactly. The deception isn't just to mess with us. It's to compel our evolution by making our old ways of thinking untenable. It's the shock needed for a species to mature beyond its limited worldview.
Okay, so that whole framework, interdimensional trickster, consciousness manipulation, cultural adaptation, maybe even a developmental nudge, that's the lens we need to look through now.
Right, because that's why Vallée looks at the current official talk about crash saucers and alien bodies and says, nope, this isn't it.
He sees it as a misdirection.
Worse, he sees it as a trap. He's very clear. There isn't a disclosure happening. He acknowledges, yes, okay, officials are finally admitting the problem is real, but the process itself, he calls it a big backtracking, designed for management, not truth.
Management? What makes him so sure? Hashtag 2A, backtracking and rumor control.
His smoking gun, really, is how the official bodies are spending their money. Specifically, ARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
What about their spending?
He points directly to the fact that AARO awarded a pretty significant contract, like $2 million for what? For rumor control.
Rumor control, not data analysis, not scientific investigation.
Rumor control. Think about what that signals. A genuine scientific effort puts money into collecting data, analyzing it openly, peer review, publishing. This is information warfare. It's PR management.
The term itself implies they see public discussion and diverse theories as a problem to be managed, not a resource.
Precisely. They want to, and this is basically the goal, stop people from stirring up the public with the stories about what UFOs may be. So for Vallée, this isn't transparency. It's the opposite. It's a signal that the subject is about to go into a new phase of secrecy.
Creating the illusion of disclosure to actually control the narrative more tightly.
Exactly. Define the official story, push out the inconvenient data, the historical stuff, the high strangeness, the consciousness element, and keep the focus narrow and controllable. Control through saturation with their version.
Yeah.
Hashtag 2B. The militarized and false narrative.
Which leads to his other big critique. The narrative itself is way too narrow. He calls it an American view.
Yeah, entirely driven by military concerns. It's all about national security, potential threats, recovered tech.
The focus is relentlessly on, 8 or 9 or 10 crafts that have been retrieved, maybe some alien cadavers. It's very physical, kinetic.
Are they a threat? Can we reverse engineer them? That's the limit of the official interest, it seems.
But the phenomenon, as we just discussed based on Vallée's work, is global. It's ancient. It's psychological.
And that's the problem. This narrow military focus completely ignores, 90% of the data? Most sightings are civilian, not military. Most happen outside the U.S. That vast data set is just sidelined.
You mentioned the Capella database before. What was that, and why is it relevant here?
Okay, so Capella was part of a Defense Intelligence Agency program called AAWSAP. Vallée was involved. They compiled this huge amount of data, detailed cases, high strangeness reports, lots of non-military international stuff, exactly the kind of data that supports his interdimensional control system model.
And that database
Remains classified. Totally ignored in the current public discussion, which is focused only on these alleged military retrievals.
So the heart of his critique is the story being disclosed, right now the crash ships, the ETH story, is fundamentally the wrong story.
It's the wrong interpretation. It's worse than wrong, actually. He sees it as a deliberately deployed false data set, a strategic distraction.
How so?
By getting everyone, scientists, media, the public, other governments, hyper-focused on, did aliens crash here? They divert attention from the much deeper, stranger, consciousness-related reality he believes the real data points to.
They're pointing everyone at a shiny, simple lie.
While the real phenomenon, the complex interdimensional intelligence, continues operating in the background, completely unstudied, completely misunderstood. It's the perfect setup for the control system, for the trickster. Create maximum confusion.
Okay, now we really get into the so what. If this current disclosure is a human-run psyop built on top of an already deceptive non-human phenomenon, what are the real-world stakes? Politically, socially.
This is where it gets really serious. We shift from analyzing the phenomenon itself to analyzing the human handling of it. And for Vallée, this is fundamentally an intelligence problem. Hashtag 3A, the intelligence problem, the Major Murphy paradigm.
You mentioned his book Messengers of Deception earlier. There's a key story in there, isn't there? About an intelligence officer.
Yes, the Major Murphy anecdote. It's absolutely pivotal to understanding why this whole thing got locked down in secrecy for so long and why Vallée thinks the current approach is flawed.
What happened in that meeting?
Vallée was explaining his scientific approach, collecting data, looking for patterns, assuming it's a natural phenomenon to be studied, and Major Murphy just wasn't buying it. He stopped Vallée and asked something like, "What makes you think UFOs are a scientific problem?"
Implying they aren't.
Implying they might be something else entirely. Murphy asked, what if they are artificial and possibly biased? What if the phenomenon lies?
If it lies, it's not just physics. It's counterintelligence.
Exactly. That's the shift. Science assumes reality is neutral and honest. Intelligence assumes your adversary might be deliberately deceiving you. If UAPs, fake evidence, stage abductions, change appearance if they lie, then studying them doesn't belong in science. It belongs in intelligence.
You need spies, not physicists.
You need counter-deception strategies. And this, for Vallée, explains the decades of secrecy. It wasn't just embarrassment. He was treated as a potential threat, maybe a foreign technology, maybe a psychological weapon. So it got buried deep within intelligence circles.
By losers in secret projects, as he sometimes calls them, people trying to figure it out, maybe weaponize it.
People engaged in a race to duplicate that technology, hidden behind national security walls. And Murphy even suggested that the inherent confusion, the high strangeness that makes it so hard to study, maybe that was put there deliberately.
Deliberately by the phenomenon itself.
Perhaps. To achieve certain results. Maybe just to keep scientists away, because scientists look for objective truth, and maybe objective truth isn't what's on offer here. It suggests the phenomenon itself might be running its own kind of counterintelligence game against us. Hashtag 3B, geopolitical and scientific chaos.
Okay, so it's an intelligence problem, potentially involving deception on multiple levels. Vallée actually favors transparency, right? But he warns against just dumping it all out there unprepared.
He does. He thinks secrecy is ultimately damaging, but he warns that just blurting out UAPs are real without the right framework would be chaotic. We lack the necessary philosophical structure, the ontology, he calls it.
Ontology, the study of being, of reality itself.
Yeah. We don't have the mental categories, the scientific models, the philosophical groundwork to properly process the reality of something interdimensional, time-bending, consciousness-affecting. Just saying they're real raises, as he puts it, 100 other questions. Our current science and philosophy just aren't equipped to handle. We wouldn't know how to integrate it.
And this lack of structure, this unpreparedness, has real geopolitical consequences happening right now.
Definitely. The current U.S.-led secrecy, or maybe selective leaking.
Yeah.
It's causing friction. Vallée, with his international contacts, says allies in places like France, the UK, they are beginning to realize that the U.S. has been lying to them for decades.
About potentially the biggest news story in history.
Exactly. And that kind of fundamental deception, it fractures trust between key allies. It could destabilize relationships just when global cooperation seems more critical than ever.
And scientifically, if the official disclosure confirms the wrong narrative, the simple ETH one?
That's the other disaster scenario. The entire global scientific community could get sent on a wild goose chase. Billions poured into trying to talk to the aliens, building SETI programs based on the assumption they're just like us, but with better engines.
While the actual phenomenon, the interdimensional control system Vallée describes, continues operating, manipulating consciousness.
Completely unstudied and misunderstood. Because everyone's looking in the wrong place, based on a potentially manufactured narrative. It's a catastrophic misallocation of intellectual resources, guided by a lie. Hashtag 3C. The engineering of belief. The ultimate social control.
This leads to the deepest, maybe the scariest implication. The phenomenon as an engine for belief.
Fundamentally, yes. Vallée sees it as generating experiences that mimic religious revelation. It provides the cosmic messengers every religion has been promising us. These aren't just sightings, they're converging experiences. They change our culture, our worldview.
He has a prime historical example for this, doesn't he? Fatima,
Portugal, 1917. It's his key case study. He had tens of thousands of people witnessing. Well, what sounds exactly like a massive UAP event. A spinning disc descending from the sky, weird atmospheric effects, physical traces like angel hair falling.
But it happened in a deeply religious Catholic context.
So the entire event was immediately interpreted through that lens. It became the miracle of the sun, a Marian apparition, a Catholic miracle.
Which perfectly demonstrates the cultural chameleon idea.
Perfectly. The phenomenon produces this objective, anomalous event. But its inherent ambiguity allows the dominant local belief system, in this case, Catholicism, to absorb it, reinterpret it, and see it as validation of their existing faith. The phenomenon doesn't care if it's called a UFO or the Virgin Mary. The goal, Vallée argues, is the creation and modification of belief itself.
Okay, but if that's what the phenomenon does naturally, what happens when human groups try to use that power? That's the dark side explored in Messengers of Deception, right?
That's the core warning. He documented how simulating contact or interpreting real contact through a specific lens has led to tragedy. Fringe groups, cults. He specifically mentions the Order of the Solar Temple, Heaven's Gate.
Groups that committed mass suicide based on beliefs about ETs and ascension.
Driven by supposed space messages or promises of cosmic salvation. It shows how pertinent this mythology is, how easily it can be used for manipulation and control, at least on a small scale.
So, if the government is now managing this disclosure, potentially pushing the ETH narrative, Vallée sees this as scaling up the cult model.
That's the terrifying implication. It becomes an act of mass psychological manipulation on a global scale. If they officially confirm the false ETH story, they validate the core belief driving countless fringe groups, potentially harnessing that energy.
Leveraging a phenomenon they don't understand for social control.
It could be seen, he warns, as deploying a kind of psychotronic weapon. Not a ray gun, but an information campaign designed to bend the human mind, to engineer a new, unified global belief system, a new form of social control built on a carefully managed revelation.
Hijacking a potentially natural, reality-bending force for human political ends, without even understanding what that force really is.
So let's just synthesize Vallée's ultimate warning here. What we're facing, potentially, isn't just one layer of deception, it's two.
Layer 1, the phenomenon itself, the non-human control system. Intrinsically deceptive, maybe as a trickster trying to force our evolution.
Layer 2, the human psychological operation. The current, managed, militarized disclosure process run by intelligence agencies, layered right on top of the first one, using the simple ETH story as a cover, perhaps.
So the world is currently rushing towards what it thinks is this amazing prize proof of aliens, maybe crash tech.
But in doing so, according to Vallée's analysis, we could be walking straight into a trap. A trap set by human actors who are trying to wield a non-human power they don't understand and almost certainly can't control.
Which leads to that ultimate paradox. Are the human controllers themselves being manipulated by the phenomenon they think they're managing? Are they just playing out a script written by the original trickster?
It's a deeply unsettling thought. Which brings us to our final provocative question for you, pulling directly from Vallée's ideas about structure and ontology. If this phenomenon truly operates as an interdimensional developmental driver, forcing us to expand our reality, what is the single biggest, most deeply ingrained human belief we might have to shed?
A belief about time, technology, consciousness, our own uniqueness. What cornerstone of our current understanding needs to crumble before we could handle the real, non-deceptive truth, whatever that might be?
Is it possible the deception itself is currently necessary, a kind of buffer protecting us from a reality we just aren't built to comprehend yet?
Something profound to think about as the story continues to unfold. Thanks for diving deep with us into this really complex, challenging perspective.
Until next time.